Okay, I've got a question from abroad here, from Joe Groves. I know the little holes along the selvage are from tenterhooks. Certainly, we've addressed that on the show a few times before. But can you work them out, like by rubbing the area, stretching the fabric a bit this way and that? Or are we just stuck with it? Thanks.
Sure. On the very, very bottom edge of the cloth, I'm actually looking at, I can see it on mine right here. There, along the edge of the cloth, you have a little, if it's a quilting selvage, or if it's a selvage edge of the cloth, meaning the natural edge of the bolt of cloth, you have a little zigzag line of holes. So here, 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 that are about a centimeter apart, going up and down. Those are what are called, it's an artifact from the weaving process. So the fabric is woven. Once it's done being woven, it's sent to the finishers to be washed and cleaned and stretched to a particular width. So what they do is they actually put the fabric, they stab it on these little tiny pins that are called tentor hooks. And in doing that, then they stretch the fabric to the appropriate width and then dry the fabric so that it is set at a particular width. Now, those little tiny holes where those pins were inserted in the cloth are left on, they're an artifact of the weaving process. It's on the fabric. And if you're using, like you are with a kilt, the entire bolt of cloth right down to the very, very edge, if you hold the very edge of the kilt up to light, you'll be able, as long as it's not hemmed, you'll be able to see those little tiny holes right on the edge of the fabric. Now, those holes will not grow. They will not unravel. It is not a flaw. It is just part of the process. Over time, with wear, with natural movement of the fabric, with washing or with dry cleaning in the case of a wool kilt, those holes will kind of shrink up a little bit over time, but they will probably always be there. If you, as Joe said, as you kind of twist the fabric this way and that, and kind of pull it diagonally to stretch it, could you work them out? Sure. You could get them to reduce in size a little bit, but I can't guarantee, nor can any kilt maker, nor can any mill guarantee that you can eliminate those holes. They will probably always be there to some level. And if you hold them up to the light, you can still see them. I mean, this kilt was wet washed, and I can, at least twice, and I can still see the tiny holes in there. Ultimately, it is one of those things where, and I say this from, personal experience. If you have a little bit of OCD about it, you can find yourself kind of picking over little tiny details like that and letting it get under your skin. You just have to wash day. You just have to let it go. Be like water. And to quote Bruce Lee,
be water, my friend.
And just kind of let it go. It's part of the thing. It's part of the beauty. It's part of the process. If you look at it through a different lens, a different personal lens, don't look at it as in there's a flaw in my kilt. There's a flaw in the fabric. Look at it as, wow, that was part of how this was actually made. If you look at it in that way and you appreciate it in that way, you start to see it differently. I'm going to draw a parallel. I've gotten gotten fabric, and I've made kilts before for myself where there's a little tiny piece of grass, little tiny piece spun in with the yarn, and it just, through the washing and dyeing process, like it becomes like white, but you see a little tiny, what looks like imperfection in the cloth of white kind of spun around one of the single strands of yarn. And it used to drive me nuts. And I used to work at actually trying to pull it out using a seam ripper, pushing it through and trying to get that out of the cloth. And I kind of evolved in my position of it, where I'm now looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, you know what that actually was? That was a sheep in a field, either in New Zealand or Scotland or wherever, that was rolling around in the grass or had a little tiny thing that got into the sheep's wool. And that little tiny piece of grass survived the combing process, survived the spinning process, survived the dyeing process, survived the weaving process, survived all the way through to cloth inspection, all the way through to kilt making. And it is now one tiny piece of grass from across the world that is now on my body as part of my kilt. It is an individual flaw that I've grown to appreciate. It's survived that long. Who am I to now pull it out? If you have OCD about it, sure, pull it out. If you have OCD about the tentor hooks, sure, try to work them out. But I submit to you, if you look at it in a slightly different way, as an individual custom garment, an individual custom piece of cloth, an individual thing woven and made just for you, and you think about all the hands that literally this piece of cloth have passed through on its journey to you, and you learn to appreciate it in that way, it's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's not me making an excuse for a flaw. It's me appreciating the thing for the beauty of the thing.
How very Japanese of you.
They call me nothing if not Japanese.
That's that's a really nice answer. I like that a lot. It's about the learning process, learning what it took to get you there, and seeing the hands of the people who worked on it in the work there. I will be a little pedantic on one point. We keep using the word holes. I think holes might make somebody think that we've put holes in your kilt. And that's not exactly what it is, because it's woven. You know, when you're sewing, you're not putting holes in the cloth. It kind of is pushing the weave aside. So it's not that
you're not
hole
drilling
got put
a
in.
hole.
Yeah. Not like that, like you would for, carpentry. But it is just pushing the fibers aside, and then in the process of drying, they dry that way. So yes, that's why they can be worked out a little bit. A little bit of an iron, especially with steam, will help. Not necessarily going to solve it in one go, Joe. Washing it will lessen them over time. I think customers are particularly seeing this with the PV. I think because of the way they treat that cloth, it tends to hold those. It's pretty rare that somebody not looking for them is ever going to see these in wool. It's rare that they're noticeable even to the kilt maker, and especially after it's been washed. Most people aren't noticing these unless they're looking for them. But the PV, I think, it's a little bit more noticeable.
Yeah, the PV, I will say this. In the PV, they tend to be, when you can see them, they tend to be a little bit more like pressed in. So it's a little bit more of a cone type thing.
Yeah,
like
you can feel
minuscule.
the texture.
Yeah, you can feel it versus just seeing it.
In the wool, you're not generally going to feel it.
Correct. Now, if you take a steam iron and kind of go along it, you can get them to relax a little. What you're really trying to do is get the fabric to relax. Think of it this way. It is woven cloth. So the things are individually woven in there, and you're putting a pin right in the center of it and then pulling it apart. So you're doing like the here's Johnny between two individual threads. Yes. A Shining reference within the thing. So you're literally pulling apart those two threads. So if you steam it, what you're trying to do is get them to just kind of relax. So if you can get them to relax through either, pulling the fabric this way and that, or in steaming it, you can get it to lessen, but it may never actually physically 100% go away. But again, I would phrase it a different way. If you have, no one is going to notice this but you.
Mm-hmm.
The only other person that's going to notice it is going to have to be 6 inches away from the hem of your kilt.
Watch out for that person.
And if they're 6 inches away from the hem of your kilt, they're either invited and they're not going to be looking at the bottom of your kilt, or they're uninvited. And what the hell are they doing 6 inches from the bottom of your kilt?
If you're going to check out these holes.
Yeah. It's an awkward situation. So ultimately, it's really not that big of a deal. Don't let it be in your brain that big of a deal. It used to be, and I speak from experience, it used to bother me, but as I kind of evolved in my thinking about it, you just get to see it in a different light, in a different way, and you just kind of let go of your worry and your concern about it, because it's not going to get worse. It's not going to get, it's not going to get bigger or anything like that. It's going to relax over time. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So which do you prefer? Something precision made, or something with a little bit of variation from batch to batch to batch, and you look at the artistic beauty of the thing? Or is there a middle ground for both, where you want it precision made but artistic? Let me know down in the comments. If you like our channel, please remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell and you get notifications every single time we go live.